I'm actually on time. Just 3 minutes late. But it still counts as on time. So, not gonna play any video games today. What I did notice is that people really enjoy my trash talking during Street Fighter. I got messages, and people are like, why don't you stream more? And I'm like, well, no one watches. And it's like, well, they would watch if you streamed more. So I will try to stream, I mean, I'm playing Street Fighter anyway, right? So I'll try to stream maybe once every week or so. If people enjoy it, fine. If not, I'll stop streaming. But where is the sound coming from? Where is the echo? I don't. Here we go. I managed to take it down. Yeah. Going to Twitter. That is an example of why I do not debate left-leaning people anymore, because back in 2016 debating people was one of my favorite activities. I would debate people from the far left, I would debate people from the far right, and many people wondered, it's like, why did you stop debating? Why? Okay, well, I'll tell you why. So there is this individual that has gone viral. They are saying that they want to have a uterus transplant so that they can get pregnant and then have an abortion. Now, I do not know whether or not like this is a fetish, or maybe they're just saying stuff that's controversial in order to create outrage, because this is how you get clout on social media now. You say stuff that's very outrageous, you know, people will attack you, and then you act like a victim, and then you get people to subscribe to your channel. So, yeah, I mean, like literally, there is this transgender individual saying that they would want a uterus to get pregnant so that they can have an abortion. I mean, obviously, this is inflammatory, right? I mean, if you legitimately say this, an overwhelming high amount of the population, like probably over 90%, will be offended by this statement. And, it could be a fetish. It could be that they're being offended. But like, my point is, like, I'm not even addressing this, right? Because obviously they're not going to be able to do it. Like, it's medically unethical and whatever. My point is, imagine being in a debate with a person like this, right? And they can say whatever they want. Like, they can say this, and it's not a violation of the terms of service. Like, this is allowed. You can just flat out come out and say that. But meanwhile, if you even misgender them, if you say, well, dude, like what you're saying is insane, you can get a terms of service strike. Because it's like, oh, so you're saying mental illness, oh, that's offensive. And I'm like, you know, like, how can you debate like that? How can you debate like that? Like, that is an easy victory, an easy win. If you go to a pub with your friends, or with strangers, and you're having a debate with someone that says, oh, I want a uterus transplant so I can get pregnant and then get an abortion. That is an easy victory. You don't even, like, need to do much in that debate. All you do is, like, a joke, and then, well, on social media, you get a terms of service violation. So, like, how can you debate? What is there to debate? What exactly can we even have? Like, how can I... It's like fighting Mike Tyson with a hand behind your back. You know, your hands are tied, actually, and you need to fight Mike Tyson. Hi V, hope your day is good. Is she black or tan? So like American Outlier is making a manga, and I taught him how to be antagonistic on Twitter. He's doing an excellent job. He's getting followers and stuff, and you know, he has certain characters. Now American Outlier, as most of you know, is a strong, emancipated black individual, and he created his own manga characters. And it's basically saying that, you know, the way the West is depicting black female characters is disrespectful and not to mention ugly, right? Like, they choose some of the most ugly characters possible. And he's like, well, look, like, my manga does better. So immediately, he's being accused. It's like, oh, well, your characters aren't black. Your characters are just tanned. So that is an interesting statement. Like, first of all, I looked at his characters. I would say that Kamala Harris and Meghan Markle, which are being considered to be black, are far more white than his characters. But second of all, you know, like, if his characters would go to a university 5 years ago, they would get affirmative action. Like, you live in a society where you can identify as being a woman, and everyone gets fired if they disagree. But if you have, like, a shade of brown character, you can't call it black. Very interesting, very emotional. But anyway, so we decided that there is like a medical explanation for this. It's all about the nipples. Like white women have red, pinkish nipples, while black women have brownish nipples. So now you can tell exactly what the anime. See, like this is actually what I would like on Steam. Like you know, clear cut definitions like that. It's like, okay, well, if you draw it like this, then it means this. If you draw it differently, then it means differently. But yeah, by the way, is Kamala Harris like legit a black person? Cause like if she comes to Romania, like no one would know. Like unless she says it, no one would know. Like to me, she looks like a white person. I need a progressive individual. I need someone from the academia, a person that has studied at the university to be able to identify whether Meghan Markle, like for sure, is not. I just no, like she look, if you were to look like that and you go back in time when the KKK was a thing and you want to apply for membership, they would let you in. Like I failed to be convinced. East Indian, but like East Indian doesn't qualify as a black person, right? Because black people are from Africa, right? And Indians, people from India are Hindi. Am I being wrong with this? No, like I'm legitimately trying to figure this out because it's very important now. I understand, right? Like, if you don't hire the correct people, then you're being accused as racist. Harris has Jamaican relatives that own slaves. Well, that's not actually quite surprising. Like, for example, Beyonce found out that when she took her 23andMe test, her ancestors actually were slave owners. And it's not surprising. I mean, look at Africa, right? And look at the pigmentation. Like, it's very dark, right? Like charcoal. And then when you look at some people from the United States, they are more light-skinned. And this is because their ancestors, some of them, were white. So it's no surprise there. But it is what it is, you know? Like, I never thought I would have these conversations. Like, I used to be, well, still am, a colorblind racist. You know, I judge people based on their characters. But I understand that Martin Luther King was a little bit outdated, reactionary. Unironically, though, like, if you read the communist literature from the time of Martin Luther King, they really dislike that man because he managed to bring upon change with the civil rights without using violence and overthrowing capitalism. Because there were a lot of communists within the that time period that were actually trying to use race, imagine that, in order to overthrow capitalism in the United States. And due to Martin Luther King's movement, that didn't happen. It went peacefully. It didn't wend up in violence. So a lot of communist writers and thinkers were very upset because of that. Anyway. I'm a proudly Martin Luther King racist, I see. So, should we talk about Tara Kasparian yet or not? Look at this. This is, my fucking guy. I guess some people would call it hilarious. Other people would call it hard to believe. But I'm genuinely curious whether or not this is real.
Hey, where boss? Boss, where? Go buy coffee. You work here?
Yes, I'm the owner.
You own this?
Yes, I do.
What is most expensive?
What is your budget?
Small budget I have, but not too much. What you have?
The most expensive SF90.
This?
Yes.
How much?
2.2 million dirham.
Dirham?
Yes, dirham.
I need more. I need expensive, brother. I don't need this. Is what my driver would drive this? Show me one expensive car.
Everything's for sale, brother.
What? Everything, no problem. But hey, Captain, you work here? Go take coffee. What is this?
Audi R8.
Give me this. And this one also?
Yeah, okay, what else?
Give me that Mercedes, okay? This Rolls Royce. And give me one Red Bull also.
No problem.
You have Red Bull?
Red Bull for free.
No, take money, no problem. Keep the change, bro.
I think it's fake. I think it's fake. First of all, if you're going to buy with actual cash, I think if this is in America, in Europe, you would not be able to do this. All right, like can you imagine just how fucked up the European legislation is that you cannot buy with cash. Like, it has to go through a bank. But anyway, right. The reason I think it's fake is the way this girl reacted.
Come, hey. I don't have time. Hey, where boss? Boss, where? Go buy coffee.
Like, she doesn't have the required shock for this, you know? Unless, like, there is a sheik coming in every single day in this store and giving her, like, stacks of cash. She's not, like, you would be like, well, you know, like, you'd have a different reaction. Isn't enough. Like, what? He's buying 3 cars, I guess, like, 2 million each. So that would be, like, $6 million. Like, it's not enough. It's not enough here. Like, this is probably... How much can you carry in a suitcase? Like 500,000, I think? Probably less. And this is like a suitcase worth. Yeah, I'm calling BS on this. I'm calling fake. A lot of TikTok videos end up being fake. But you know what's interesting? And this is also mind-boggling me. Every single time I say something is fake because it's too dumb, turns out it's real. And every time I say something is real, turns out it's fake. So if I say it's fake, it's probably real. The mask, his accent is fake. It is fake, isn't it? Yeah. Red Bull ad? No, I don't think so. Kamala is more red dot Indian than black, but there are Indians that are more darker than me. That's why I start... Yeah, but like, okay, so, when you say black, right, you think of a person of African descent, right? Like, when you say India, you're going to think of a person that's coming from the Indias, right? From that place. I mean, sure, you know, like a person that... well, what's interesting is that my cousin went to India a couple of years ago, and she actually traveled to some of the more rural parts. And there were kids that were coming up to her, like, wanting to touch her face because, like, they never seen a white person before. So, you know, like, this whole thing where you have this idea that, oh my god, you know, like, white people are touching black people's hair. Yeah, that it happens the other way around. Like, if you happen to be the outlier and you're going into, you know, a nation where you're the minority, like, people are fascinated by you. And this is also happening in Asia, in Japan, like, for example, if you're a white guy, a lot of women will like you, and then it's more like you're a purse puppy type of thing. You know, it's like, oh, they get to date a white guy. It's a fetish. I don't know, like, why do women find that to be insulting? Like, you go to Japan and you have all these omoshiroi ladies, these ushikushi ladies coming up to you and they want to date you. It's like, oh, they have a fetish for the white man. Why is that wrong? Why is that bad? Anyway, dude with bags of 30K get it seized by the cops regardless of reason. That would get asset forfeited, even in the United States. Like, that's interesting. I didn't know. I guess it's like this push that everything needs to be digital, right? They tried doing this. They actually are doing this in UK right now. Apparently, Nigel Farage is starting a big conversation because banks don't want to do business with him as they consider him to be a politically exposed person. But what is being uncovered, I mean, like, people didn't speak out about this because they thought that they're alone. But if you have, like, mom and pop stores that only deal with cash, like, they would have difficulty starting bank accounts. Because, like, the banks do not like it when you deal with cash. So there's, like, this... Like, it's not expressly stated. There's no rules, you know, that are being made like that. But they will find reason not to do business with you. Civil forfeiture is a huge meme in the US. Well, I'll tell you this, you know, like, at least you can't do business with cash in the US. But here in the European Union, like, it is, in my country, it is illegal to buy or sell anything more than $1,000 without using a bank transfer. So, normally, because of the way prices are done, like, most people don't encounter this issue. But if you want to buy a computer, if you want to buy a car, if you want to buy a refrigerator that costs more than $1,000, you literally cannot buy it with cash. And most Romanians don't even know, because like most people do not. Well, I mean, if you're going to sell a house, right? Like no one is going to actually use cash. If you're going to buy a car, like same thing. But if you're actually like myself, like I used to do this. I do not like banks. I just don't like them. You know, if I can avoid them, the moment that I get my paycheck, I just take it in cash. So I used to go to the bank when I wanted to make my down payment for the mortgage. And I bring the stacks of cash, like, they're looking at me like I'm some sort of savage coming from the Congo. It's like, oh my god, this guy has cash? Ugh. And I'm like, okay, so what is the advantage if I keep it in the bank? And they couldn't name a single one. So like, okay, if there's no advantage in keeping it in the bank, why would I do it? And they couldn't answer. But for some reason, I was weird. So what I had to do is like, okay, so you want me to actually first put the money in the bank, and then through the account you want the money wired. And they're like, yes. I'm like, okay. And now we made 2 transactions instead of 1. But it is what it is. In Canada, mandatory reportable amount is something like 9,999. It is. I don't even know how it was allowed to get to this point, but what can you do? Just to point out, in London, like when I went, so first of all, Romania is a country that literally destroys the banks. Like I am not an outlier. Most people are like this because we experienced communism. And after communism, there were a lot of banks that went bankrupt, so people lost their money. Greece is a similar situation due to the crisis that they had, where people weren't allowed to withdraw their money from the bank. So there are a couple of countries that literally despise anything that has to do with banking transactions. But with that out of the way, like going to London and experiencing the opposite was very shocking. Like it was a culture shock for me. You go to London, and if you go to the London Zoo, if you go to the London Dungeon, the London Eye, museums, or any major tourist attractions, they do not take cash. So you literally have your cash in hand, and you're like, let me in, and they're like, no. Like a horse that's high on ivermectin. They go, nay. And it's like, why? Because they want credit. And like, but why though? Like, this is cash. Is it not good? Like, it has your queen on it. Like, why can't you? No. In the United States, most money a person can have on them is 10,000. Fun side story, my nephew went to a used car dealer and gave him a brown bag with 20K. When he told me, I said, you dumbass, this man could have reported you and be out of 20K. But like, hold on, like, if they confiscate the money, right? And they find out that you had like legal reasons to carry it with you, don't they give it back? And even then, if it's like, okay, so you're only allowed to have 10K with you, then you bring your brother. You bring your brother from another mother, and it's like 10K with you, 10K with him, 20K in total. There you go. But not to mention, like, the guy would probably not call the cops because he loses the business, right? Like, he wants to sell you a car. You need to go to court, Jesus. But even then, right? So all right, let's say that I'm in the US and I have the money on me, right? And I can legally prove that it's mine. So the cops come in, they seize the assets, I go to court, I get a judge with a legal affidavit, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't that mean that they have to give me my money back and then I can also ask for damages? Well, I guess you can't ask for damages, like if it's legally required for them to seize it. So fucked up, man. Like, everything is done so that people are more reliant on the banks. And it's interesting because the banks are at the public utility. Like, here's a fun fact. You know, you're allowed... Well, actually, you're not allowed. You're entitled to have electricity and water because these are utilities. So, the water company can't say, oh, well, you're racist, so we're not going to give you the service anymore. You know, the electric company can't say, well, we saw what you posted on Twitter, so because of that, we're going to cut electricity to your company. But the banks aren't a utility, right? So the banks can choose not to do business with you, but you are forced to use the banks in situations like when you sell a car, when you sell a house, when, right? You're not allowed to carry more than $9,000 with you, so on and so forth. So it's interesting how the law progresses, but the banks aren't being held at the same scrutiny like the electric company. Because the idea is that you need electricity in order to survive in a modern first world country. It's impossible to do anything without electricity. So that's why it's considered a utility. But it is what it is, like there's nothing you can do about it, I suppose. Banks are a private service with very limited oversight. Yeah, but that's my point. It shouldn't be the same, And by the way, like the electric company still makes a profit. Like they're not a socialist entity. They're not owned by the government. It's just that they are not allowed to do certain things. Like they are not allowed to choose. Okay, well, we don't like this company, so we're going to cut power to it. We saw what they post on Twitter. We disagree with their political takes, so we're not going to allow them to have electricity. They can't do that. But the electric company still makes a profit. BOA just got fined $30 million for making hundreds of thousands of fraudulent accounts to boost their sign-up numbers. Yeah, well, I guess it is what it is. You want free speech? Go start a bank. Unironically. Anna Kasparian. Oh my fucking lord. So she's getting into some really huge problems at the Young Turks. And many people are accusing the Young Turks of trying to become right-wing, to cater to the right. I will say that anyone that does this doesn't really understand how the world works. And they put the cart in front of the horse. Okay? The left believes that without Ben Shapiro, without Steven Crowder, without Tucker Carlson, and without all these political commentators, that everyone would vote for Obama. Right? So this is what the left believes. That they believe that the influencer hypnotizes people like the snake cat does to Mowgli, and everyone basically now believes falsehoods and misinformations because they watch Tucker Carlson. It doesn't work that way, okay? Usually the way it works is that people have grievances in real life and then they listen to people who represent them. And I can prove this. If you look at YouTube, you will see many right-wing commentators that have gone woke. And what happens is that almost all of their subscriber base ends up hemorrhaging. Like when you do this, like if I were to, for example, talk about identity politics and I would say why misgendering is genocide and shit like that, I would lose most of my subscribers overnight. Like no one would tune in. Why? Because people do not watch me because I have indoctrinated them, because I have managed to seduce them into the way of the right wing. People watch me because they look at things in the world, they have their own basis of assumption, and what I say resonates with them. And it's the same for left-wing commentators. So the Young Turks, for example, appeals to a very far-left, radical crowd. Now, if they were to go right-wing, if they became the new Daily Wire, they would lose almost all of their subscriber base. And chances are no one would watch them from the right because they would look at the Young Turks and they would say that they're grifting. They would say like, well, clearly they do not believe in any of this. So they would have like the worst, I guess, like business decision that they can make. So I do think that what Anna Kasparian is doing is legit. I genuinely believe that she is looking at what's happening with the leftist ideology and she's on board on most of it except for environmentalism and trans issues. So if you're out of the loop, there are two things that have changed Anna Kasparian. One of them is the fact that the environmental issues are finally starting to affect her. And by this I mean the fact that she's not allowed to have a gas stove in the future. And she points out something accurate, right? Like, for example, my grandmother's house is not built to support an electric gas stove. So this is a very old house that existed for more than 100 of years, right? It was built way back. And the electric wiring is there to support a refrigerator, maybe a television, and that's it. Like if you were to put an electric an electric stove in my grandmother's house, it would short circuit. Like it's literally not made to have that installed. So what you need to do is you need to spend, I think, around $10,000, give or take, in order to crack the walls, change the wiring, adapt it to a modern standard, and then patch the walls back and make it look as new, right? And this is very expensive. It's very expensive for a Romanian. I don't know how much it is for an American, but there's many buildings like this in the United States. There's a lot of buildings, and even then, like, if you happen to live in an apartment block, the situation becomes even more complicated. So, Anna Kasparian is pointing this out, right? Like, she's saying, like, changing the gas stove itself isn't the expensive part. Because it's like, fine, you go from, you sell your gas stove and you buy an electric one and there you go. That's not the problem. The problem is with the wiring, and the problem is, like, with the money that you need to spend. And she's complaining that the government isn't helping. And it's like, well, I don't even think that the government itself would be able to afford that every single American citizen would be able to switch to an electric stove, right? So, Anna Kasparian was a lady that supported environmentalist policies as long as it didn't affect her. But now that it's finally affecting her, now that it's finally in her backyard, now she cares. And she's very vocal about it. So, yeah, it's like, give you the money, give me the money. That's exactly how she said. Let me see if I can actually find the recording, because it's very funny. Anna Kasparian, electric stove. Ah, here we go. Anna Kasparian destroys Green New Deal.
I never thought I'd be able to give up cigarettes, but...
I found it on Actual Justice Warrior's channel. But I don't want to listen to Actual Justice Warrior. You guys can subscribe to his channel if you want to listen to him. I want to listen to what Anna Kasparian has to say.
To phase out gas vehicles. And so we need charging stations for every single unit. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. You think the government's going to help us with that? Government's not going to help us with that, okay? So, like, this is the thing that kind of annoys me a little bit about the way Democrats handle these discussions, because they tend to forget how much of an economic burden these transitions happen to be when they don't help. And then when they turn around, they're like, no, we'll maybe give you some, tax incentives. I don't want tax incentives. If you're gonna phase out major technology for climate change, which I agree with, without actually doing anything about the fossil fuel companies and the drilling and all of that stuff, fine, but you need to actually help people out financially in making these transitions.
Well, to Anna...
Right, so there are now two types of leftists that I noticed. The leftists affected by the policies and the leftists that aren't yet affected. The ones that are affected, even like the hardcore ones like Anna Kasparian, they're complaining about the policies. Now, they would say it's like, oh, well, like the Green New Deal is horrible or whatever. No, they're not going to say that, but they're going to say, well, like, why isn't the government helping? Why isn't it giving me the money? But at the same time, they can't really say that they don't support these policies because they are surrounded by friends like Cenk. And look how upset Cenk is getting when Anna is talking about these issues. And this is on a members-only stream, right? Like, this is not on them trying to, I guess, like, appeal to a new audience, trying to get more people to subscribe to the Young Turks because, hey, look, they're right. No. This is on a members-only fucking stream. This is why I genuinely believe, unironically, that Anna Kasparian is legit. Like, she for real believes in this. Like, she's not making it up.
The plans that good people came up with, okay? Green New Deal, folks came up with a plan that took transition super seriously, especially about jobs. So if you're in an industry like coal, we gotta transition you to other jobs, right? But the
Learn to code, and then when you say that on Twitter, journalists get offended.
problem is the politicians and the donors, right? So if you're a good plan on Green New Deal, and then you put it through a meat grinder, right?
I mean, it's unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And so then, are they going to cover the EV charging stations like they were supposed to? Who knows?
Now, to be fair,
Well, I don't think that that's right.
it was for getting rid of gas stoves.
But it's a big lie.
Is it?
Well, why don't you say that?
Because no one, look, let's just keep it real. Of course, not a single Democratic lawmaker has proposed banning gas stoves.
Yeah.
Are we really going to pretend like we're not headed in that direction?
Well, I don't.
I love this. I love that. This is why every single fucking conspiracy theory turns out to be true in a couple of days. So basically what's happening here is what has been happening throughout the last 6 years. The policies that appear, they do not sprung out of the ether, right? Like, they do not sprout into the basement of a politician. You notice where the culture is going. Like, you notice that this is where it's being pushed. So, when people start complaining initially and they're like, well, this is ridiculous, like, why are they banning gas stoves? People are like, oh, well, it's a conspiracy theory. They're not trying to ban gas stoves. But then when the ban actually happens, they start saying, well, okay, well, they are trying to ban a couple, but it's not so bad, right? Because, like, if you have one, you're still going to be able to take it. If you go to Florida and you buy one from there, you're going to be able to carry it, right? So they will say, yes, it's happening, but it's not so bad. And then, when it's undeniably bad, and it's happening, they will say, yes, it's happening, but that's a good thing, and people who speak against it are the problem. Like, this is the... I guess, like, the 3 steps that the left propaganda has been working. Like, for example, Jordan Peterson, right? Jordan Peterson comes out a couple of years ago, and this is how he actually got famous with the normies. He basically comes out and says, I do not like what is happening at this university because they want to make pronouns mandatory, and if someone comes into my class with zur and her, I have to say it because otherwise I'm being punished. And I do not want to live in a country where it's being illegal or it's under a fine to misgender someone. And at the time, you know, like, people were saying, it's like, what are you talking about? Like, misgendering, like, is never going to be a crime, is never going to be an issue. And now, in Canada, there is a father which is awaiting sentencing because he misgendered his daughter, right? So, how did Jordan Peterson knew? Because there are articles attacking him on saying that he was talking shit, that he was a conspiracy theorist, that he was spreading misinformation, and yet he knew. Well, how? Because you notice the way the culture is trending, right? Everything was going in this direction. You couldn't criticize any of the activists. You couldn't talk against them, right? Like, there was no debate. It's just basically do whatever the fuck you want. And it was obvious that it was going to head this way. Coincidentally, they are the same description used to describe narcissists. Yes, there is a lot of narcissistic disorder on Twitter, especially. Like, you go on Twitter and you see some of the more vocal individuals, they flat out fit the narcissistic disorder. But, you know, I mean, it is what it is. Like, what can you do about it? So anyway, the thing with that is that, it's the stage... I don't even know if it's the stages of denial at this point, because no one is in denial, right? Like the people who are, like, Chen Kuger here, and the people in the Anchorage chat, which are saying that Ara Kasparian is crazy because she thinks that gas stoves are going to be banned. They probably know. I'm pretty sure that they want the gas stoves to be banned. And the reason that I'm saying this is that you sometimes go on Twitter and you make a statement. And the statement is true, and you're going to get people attacking you, right? Like for example, if I go on Twitter and I say that California has made it so that the willing spread of AIDS is now a misdemeanor, right? So we're not talking about, like, you're having AIDS and you accidentally gave it to another person, right? No, we're talking about you have AIDS, and you have sex with another person without telling them, without disclosing this, and then that person ends up having it, right? Now, in my country, that is like poisoning someone. Like, the law treats this very seriously. I understand that if you're diagnosed with an illness, you know, it cannot be your fault. Sometimes it's not your fault. Like, for example, you prickle yourself with a needle or something, right? So that is definitely something bad that happened to you. But you now have a responsibility not to pass it on others. It's very interesting that during COVID, this was applied, right? So, like, you had this situation in California now, where if you were to willingly pass AIDS on to someone, it was a misdemeanor, but it was incredibly socially haram to go out without a mask. And in some places, I don't know if it was in California, but, like, they would shut down your businesses. They would fine you, right? So the point that I'm trying to make is that most people didn't believe that AIDS, like willingly passing of AIDS, is a less serious concern. So they would agree with me. They would disagree with me. And when I would show them the actual legislation, when I would point out, like, look, this is what's actually happening. What the fuck are you on about? They would be like, oh, okay, well, it's happening, but it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing because AIDS is now, they would say that AIDS is actually very easy to hold under control now with medication, and it's not such a big issue, and you should stop complaining about it because you're being a bigot, right? So, there are like certain problems that you would do with that. Like, first of all, I do not know the side effects of the medication, like how it affects your kidneys or your liver, because you have to take it. I think it's like for the rest of your life, right? It's not a cure; it's just suppressing it. So I'd have to look into the side effect. But even then, right? Like the treatment is very expensive. So even if you have insurance and stuff, if there's like a couple of people that have the disease, then it's fine, right? Because it's manageable. But if like an overwhelming group of people would have it because you're not trying to combat the spread of it, then it would be a problem because there may not be enough funding for it. But, you know, like, people on Twitter, like, they like to get into conversations and talk about stuff they don't understand. Gas stoves, the thing that works when power don't. Yeah. So here's another problem that I have. I got an electric stove. And the reason for me getting an electric stove was literally this. Like, I moved into a new house. I kind of see how the wings are going, and I noticed that, well, there's going to be a lot of carbon tax, and, you know, there may actually be eventually legislation where they force you to have one. So I'm like, okay, well, I might as well buy one. You know, like, I didn't have any stove, and buying an electric stove or a gas stove, there wasn't that much of a price difference. So anyway, I get an electric stove. This winter, there was a truck which went into a tree, and that tree cut the power cord. So I ended up without electricity for like 11 or 12 hours. During the winter, it's really bad because there's no way to heat your house, right? But guess what? I couldn't cook shit either. So, having your house entirely dependent on electricity, really bad. Really, really bad. Sorry, I could heat my house. My neighbor couldn't. Because I actually, like, the only gas thing that I have in my house is the heater. So that one has gas, and that one was good. But there was no electricity, so I couldn't cook anything. And there's another thing that people are saying, which, again, is a conspiracy theory, I guess. It's a lot easier for the government to cut the power than to cut the gas. Right? So this actually was proposed in California. I don't know if they actually went with it or not. But they said something like, they were like, if you throw a party during the pandemic, they could cut your electricity. So, you know, like, think about it. Like, if you have a situation where there's some civil unrest or something, they could easily just cut the electricity, and then you can't cook, right? Like, people can stay in their house without television, they can stay in their house without lights, like, you get, but like, without cooking. Yeah, I definitely do think that there is something to do with control, with population control rather than fighting climate change. It's just like time and time again, you know, you notice how the rich do not get affected by these regulations. For example, there was this very bizarre regulation that came in my country. They wanted to fix the carbon emissions of cargo ships. And you look at it, like, all the things affected was like a ship based on this length that emits this much. Yachts weren't affected. So you could have a yacht or a private, you know, ship that was polluting really hard, like probably the same like a cargo ship. That was accepted. Like, you wouldn't have to pay carbon tax if you're there. And it's like, oh, come on. You know, like, how more obvious can you make it? Notice, no, they're not electric. Like, they emit carbon. But, like, notice how there's no regulation on how large houses you can build. You know, like, most people aren't going to have, like, a $3 million mansion, right? So like, if you wanted to, like, fight global warming and stuff, one of the things that you could do is, like, to not allow the massive houses to be built. So look at the mansion where the Black Lives Matter leaders live, you know, or Hassan Piker and stuff. Like, if you're fighting global warming, that is such a waste. No one needs to have a mansion that big, right? And for some reason, there's no regulations against it. Yes, V, that happened in California. The city cut power to a house party. I thought they were only talking about it. I didn't know that they went with it. But yeah, it's from my understanding with people that by talking with people that actually are engineers and stuff, like cutting the gas is very difficult, but cutting power is very easy. By the way, someone reminded me of an interesting setting. I'm really curious if you could do it today, but this is from Fallout, and when I first played it, I didn't realize it, but yeah, it's true. So there is this hotel in Fallout, which belongs to an evil person, by the way. The entire questline is very interesting. So this person owns this hotel, and as you can see, it's in the middle of the wasteland, and it looks very imposing. And the reason the person is evil is because he actually wants to nuke an entire city because it's an eyesore. So the first city that you go through, it has like some people that are worshipping the atom, and they have like an entire cult, which is them worshipping a nuclear bomb that hasn't detonated yet. And you can actually help the guy and detonate the city. You kill everyone, and you go in this hotel. I think it's like at this point, right, like right here, and you're watching the nuclear explosion from far away. And again, like the only reason that the guy wants to destroy the city is because it's an eyesore, right? Like he goes on his window and he's looking at it and doesn't like what he's seeing. But this is like a comically evil thing, whatever. This is not the questline that I want to talk about. When you first try to get into this hotel, you notice that it's being surrounded by a fence. And there are some ghouls, and the ghouls are a sub-race in the Fallout universe. They're people that got radiated, right? So you can see their skin, they're very ugly. But there are ghouls that are trying to get in. And that obviously, like the entire fence is there to prevent them from getting in. And there is a quest line that you can do which allows the ghouls to actually go into the hotel. So once the ghouls get into the hotel, at first, the people, like the humans in the hotel, they're complaining. They don't like the fact that the ghouls are making a mess. But if you leave and then you come back later, the ghouls murder everyone. And I'm thinking like, okay, so you're telling me that you have like this really beautiful place that's being built, and everyone is having like living the life of paradise, living the life of dream in the nuclear wasteland. And they're keeping out these ghouls, and if you let the ghouls in, they murdered everyone and take the hotel from themselves. And not only that, like the entire hotel becomes destroyed. Like the water stops working, the electricity stops working. It just becomes like another building in Fallout universe. So yeah, what did Todd mean by this? What the developers of this game mean by this? Like Fallout 3 came, what was it, 2012 or so? Like it's a very old game. But it's a very interesting take. It's a very interesting story that I'm not sure you could have it today in any video game. If you kill the ghouls later, you get negative karma. I think it's because like the quest is over, right? So they don't really expect you to kill them, because at that point they become just like an NPC. And if you kill NPCs for no reason, then it's considered negative karma. But you are right. You are right in the sense that if you kill them later, you get negative karma. But it is very almost Shiroi, It's like there have some subtle nuances to this thing. And like I guess that it makes sense. Like in a way, the guy owning the hotel, like it's such a deep analogy, right? Because it's not good versus evil. The guy owning the hotel is an absolute comically evil character. Like, there is no rhyme or reason for what, like, nuking an entire city just because, he watches out the window and it's an eyesore. So, yes, like, the guy owning the hotel is evil, but the people owning living in the hotel aren't necessarily bad. Like, some of the people that got killed in the uprising, they didn't deserve it. Like, you have this guy, which is a hunter there. You have another person that's very honorable. And what's also interesting, like, when you go into the hotel, most people are in favor of letting the ghouls in. Like, there are, especially the women, I think. Like, there was, like, this rich lady, which is like, yeah, you know, like, she disagrees with the fact that there's a wall around the hotel, and she thinks that ghouls should be able to become customers, and she doesn't agree with the policies set by the person, and the person in charge is evil, blah, blah, blah. So, it is an interesting thing. And, again, like, when I first played it, I didn't notice any of this. But, now that people are talking about it, I find it very omoshiroi. Yeah, like when you first play it, you're like, you kind of sympathize with the ghouls. And it's interesting, like the ghoul that wanted in, he was actually a rich person, like he actually wanted to buy a ticket, but he wasn't allowed in because he's a ghoul. So that's discrimination, right? And when you allow them in, the ghoul that you first allowed in, if I remember correctly, like he's not the one that did anything wrong, but at the same time, he's not complaining about it either, right? So he's not the one responsible, but he's not remorseful. Like, he's like, yeah, whatever, you know, the humans died. The ghouls had underworld. Wasn't that like... So from what I remember from the Fallout lore, is that every bunker was an experiment. And the door in their bunker didn't close, so they got radiation sickness. But, like, no, it wasn't underworld. It was called Necropolis. One of the reasons the ghouls hate the humans is the fact that they have a clean place to stay. Yeah. So, it's interesting because once they get into the hotel stops looking clean. In that game, there's also an entire ghoul market in DC. Well, I mean... It's just like a one-off quest, right? Like, it's the world of Fallout is not very well neatly tied together. It's also interesting that, you know, like in the Necropolis, they don't allow humans either. So it's not like only ghouls are being discriminated. But yeah, like in most places in the Fallout lore, ghouls are treated differently and they are discriminated. The Enclave discriminates against them, other settlements discriminates against them. I think, like, no, hold on. Like, the only place that the ghouls actually have, I think, was the power plant. So, next to Vault City, there was a power plant, which the ghouls operate because they're immune to the negative radiation there. And Vault City actually tries to send you in there in order to destroy their little power plant. Necropolis was Fallout 1, yes, but it's part of the canon. Like, that's how it's established. Like, Fallout 3 does follow the lore from Fallout 1. The ghouls didn't have a bunker, they were just unlucky not to die in the bombs. No. So the lore actually has two different explanations. The first explanation is that there were indeed some humans that didn't happen to be in one of the official vaults. And they got turned into ghouls because they didn't die from the blast, but they got affected by the radiation. But there's also like look it up. It's on the Fallout wiki. Like I know my Fallout lore to a T. I may forget something every now and then, but when it's about the main plot lines, I'm pretty sure. So there was like the original vault that the ghouls were in, which is called the Necropolis, and the door is closed, but they didn't close properly. So the radiation got in and they ghoulified the whole thing. And I think like that's where you go to find the water chip that you require for the first mission in Fallout 1. Hopefully Starfield is half as good as Fallout 3. I don't know. I do not like games that are in the end dev cycle. And Starfield sounds too much like Star Citizen, so it's getting me paranoid. Canon is a mutable thing that Bethesda can make or break. Yeah, but like the thing is usually when it's stuff about like important lore aspects, at least they try to follow the canon. I personally do not believe that Fallout 76 is official. Like I pretend that game never existed. The very fact that you would make a game which has no NPCs is a very bizarre development choice for me. The Fallout 76, like I actually know from developers that worked at the company and they told me what was going on. they were trying to make gaming as a service back then. So they basically wanted the multiplayer game that just sells you endless DLC, and they didn't focus on the story. It was literally a cash grab, basically. And the reason for the cash grab was, oh, well, they're making gaming as a service, and we need to get on the bandwagon fast, because otherwise we may miss it. And let's reuse some assets from Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, make a new spin-off game, everyone will like it, because it's the Fallout IP. So they rushed it so much that the game was broken at launch, it had no NPCs, and that's why Fallout 76 exists. What the hell are you talking about? Fallout lore. You don't... Lucius, you do not know what Fallout is? It's a post-apocalyptic RPG game. Really popular, you should check it out, it's good. I recommend it. The third one, and the second, if you can stomach the bad graphics. Is there anything worse than gaming as a service? Yes, early access. Latency as a service. I love how they screwed up the concept that nukes could be used to root up players taking locations. Only that players could download their entire base and fast travel. Yeah. No, it was a horrible game. Like literally, it was just a rush cash grab. And everyone on the development team knew it. The people seeing the trailer could tell it. Like, it was very obvious to everyone, and yet they still pushed it. And of course, it didn't sell, which is good. Like, if that thing sold, more companies would have done the same. In Fallout 2, you can have unprotected sex and get the mob boss's wife pregnant. Oh my god, in Fallout 2 you can do so many things. Like, first of all, it actually matters if you roll a female or a male character. So if you roll a female character, you can make a lot of money by just sleeping around with people. Like, literally, in the first level, you meet, like, this guy, and it's like, hey, chick, I'll give you 200 caps if you have sex with me. And if you say yes, you get 200 caps. You can become a porn star. You can have sex with a slaver in order to give you a discount on Sulik. So, yeah, if you're a guy, you also get some advantages later on. There are a couple of female characters that you can... if you have high charisma, you can persuade to sleep with you. But you also get... I think, like, there is a mob family that is very conservative, and they're very misogynistic. And you can only join them if you're a guy. So you need to play a male character. I really like that difference, you know? Like, it added a lot to the roleplay aspect. Now video games don't do that anymore. Like, well, I would say male and female is just a cosmetic choice, but in reality it's body type A, body type B. Okay, I played only Medal of Honor. Jesus fucking Christ. How old is Medal of Honor? Like, Medal of Honor is older than Fallout, isn't it? It's, when did they even stop making Medal of Honor? I think, like, the last one they did was actually really good. It had, at the end of the game, it had, like, a cinematic where you had, like, actual World War II veterans that talked about the war, and they used those stories in order to create the game. And it was a really good game. Like, yeah, Medal of Honor was great. But for some reason they stopped making it and they made Call of Duty instead. Last one was V98, 26 years old. Holy shit. Oh, last one was VR. Yeah. So they actually did make a new Medal of Honor that no one talks about because no one probably even knows exists. It's a Medal of Honor for VR. Wasn't very successful. It looked like shit. But I guess it was VR, so that's an excuse. A post-apocalyptic world is going to get real patriarch really fast. I mean, most of Fallout is. But... like, the only female leader is in Vault City, and they have, like, technology to afford having, like, a really lax thing. Yeah, like, most of the people in Fallout, like, if you look at the NPCs, the people in power are all men. Very few exceptions. But, like, this gang in New Reno was very patriarchal, as in, like, they wouldn't accept women at all. So other gangs, you know, like, if you're a woman that proved herself, then fine. It's actually interesting. Like when you play Fallout 2, the genders make sense, right? Like there are some women that are, you know, evil, but they do like different type of crimes. Like you're not going to see many female raiders. Yeah, it's mostly male that become thugs. I really like the fact that there is like the child killer perk, right? So if you murder children in Fallout, you get the child killer perk, and then other people know that you're a piece of shit, and they will send bounty hunters after you. They will refuse to do business with you. Another settlement needs our help. Oh my god. The one cult at the Oasis. Yeah, no, like yeah, Vault City sucks. There's a lot of politics in Fallout, and they're very subtle as well. Medal of Honor 2, early 2000s. Used low resolution on purpose to see through the walls. Yeah, so basically there were a lot of games. It's actually interesting if I think about it. There were a lot of first-person shooters that if you wanted to play competitively, you had to use the shit resolution. One of the reasons was that the game would run more smoothly. If you didn't have like a good PC, you'd play it on low resolution. But another one was like if you played PUBG, right? You use low resolution and now you can see through the foliage. So if you had like high textures, you would actually see bushes and trees and you couldn't see through them. But if you use low resolution, it gave you an advantage. I think it's the same with strategy games as well. Like there's a lot of visual clutter. So I noticed like most pro players would play StarCraft 2 with like the minimal resolution settings. Yeah, Call of Duty 4 with no resolution had no grass, no hiding spots. Hello, Old School Lou. Anyway, I need to go make the videos for my other channels. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching this. I appreciate it, especially for the super chats, because I may need to buy a new mouse. So this is how my current mouse looks like. Like what happened was that the button got stuck, so I tried to unstuck it. And it actually ended up. This is a 5-year-old mouse. It's an MX Master, and people were upset when I bought the MX Master because it's expensive. But I'm telling you this, like I used to buy, I think like a new mouse every 3 or 4 months because something would break. The mouse wheel is probably the most sensitive part that would break, or it would just stop displaying the pointer correctly. So the MX Master is an expensive mouse. I think it's $200. But like for 5 years, this thing lasted me. Yes, only 5 years. And now apparently there is an MX Master that's better than this. This is the MX Master. I think it's like 2000, and now that I looked, the MX Master 3000 is out. And I wanted it for my birthday, but I didn't have money. And now I shall get the MX Master 3000. And this is due to the fact that I need a new mouse anyway. So I'm going to get the MX Master. No, it's not smashed because this is rubber. Like, this is cut. I tried to, like, peel it off, but it didn't work. Apparently, like, you're supposed to actually open it in a different manner. Yeah. So anyway, I think this is the best mouse in the world, unironically. Like the way it fits your finger is very perfect. Like your finger literally rests like it's just you got like the little wheel here. You got, you know, you can use your thumb, you get another button over there. It's wireless. It takes a lot of time until the battery depletes. I am in love with this mouse, but unfortunately now his watch has ended. So wait for the 4000. No. You've never heard about the Dragon Mouse, though? Does it work with the left hand? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't, but there might be models for left-handed people. Anyway, right, I need to go. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for the donations. I will get a new mouse soon, and I'll see you there on my other channel.